And we are live. Welcome, guys, to another live episode. And today we have a special episode. Today we're going to be talking a little bit. We're going to be getting a little bit more psychological. I'm going to be getting in your head. We're going to be getting into what goes on in your mind, what's going on in your head right now. Now, the title of this video and what we're going to be talking about today is You Need a Villain. You need a villain. I know it's insane. I know it's crazy. You're gonna be like, Emmanuel, why do I need a villain? Why do I need something? Well, what is the reason why you would even tell me that I need something like a villain? Why in God's name? Because I know villains are bad. Villains come with problems. Villains are not good for you. Villains and villains and villains. But we're gonna be talking about why. I'm gonna be telling you guys now, right now, we're gonna be talking about why you need to pretty much okay, listen to me, guys, getting everything all set up here. Why you need right now? You're listening to me. You're like, okay, what is? I want you guys to start this off. What we're going to be doing right now is we're going to be basically watching this video. I want you guys to look at this commentary, and this commentary is by Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson makes a commentary that I believe that is very, very important for people because you know what's interesting as I go through life and I interact with a lot of people, I start to realize that a lot of people do not know or do not have a sense of direction, right? I want you to think about it from a perspective of just imagine. What I want you to do right now is I want you to just imagine that you are basically you have to go to the grocery store, right? You go ahead, you get in your car, you're like, hey honey, what do you need? She's like, I need some milk. And once you get some milk, get us some cookies and then get some stuff for the kids. You're like, okay, cool, awesome. You get to the grocery store. You basically you get to the grocery store, you go ahead, but here is the process. Before you get to the grocery store, let's say you moved into a new neighborhood that you've never been in before, you don't know anybody in this neighborhood, and it's just you and your family. What is the first thing you do? You go on Google Maps, right? You go on Google Maps and you go, okay, tip 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 tip, address to the grocery store. You get to the grocery store and you're like, oh, okay, good. Now imagine if you're in a neighborhood that you don't know about. You don't know any directions. You don't have anybody to give you directions. And now you have to go for some magical reason to go ahead and go get you milk. How hard is that going to be? It's going to be hard because there's no sense of direction. And that's what's happening in a lot of people's lives. Now, a lot of people don't have direction, not because of, oh my God, I want to make a lot of money. Because if you ask some people, it's money, money. But let's say it's not money. Let's say because a lot of people are not motivated by money. You're probably watching this right now and you're like, if there's a chance that you might make $1 million, but there's a 99% chance you might lose your money, you'd be like, absolutely no, I'm not going to do that. But that's because you have, some sort of desire in your life, right? But you don't have anything that's pushing you, right? I want you guys to listen. There's an experiment that was done, and I want Jordan Peterson is going to go ahead and explain this, and I want you guys to go ahead and take a listen to this video as he explains.
Is motivated is, let's say you've run him through a maze and he knows there's some food at the end of the maze. You can tie a little spring to his tail and see how hard he pulls when you open the door to the maze. So that's because that's how much rat work the rat is willing to do. So you can measure that. Or you can see how fast he skitters down the maze and you can get an estimate about the rat's motivation. And so then you might say, well, how motivated is a hungry rat? And the answer would be, depends on how hungry he is. But there's another answer. It also depends on what's chasing him when he's going after the food. So if you have a rat and you have food over here and you waft in some cat odor, rats hate cat odor and it's innate. They never have to see or smell a cat to be absolutely petrified by cat odor. And so if you waft in some cat odor and then open the door, that rat will zoom to that food a lot faster than it will if it's just hungry. So a rat running away from something that it doesn't want towards something that it does want, measure how.
Now that's something is I want you to think about. Let's kind of let's kind of bring that experiment back together, right? So we have a rat in a maze. Okay, we're gonna bring this back together, right? So what he's saying is basically you have a rat in a maze, you put a cheese, and you're like, all right, right. If you've seen Tom and Jerry, rats like cheese. So you have this rat that now has to basically go after this cheese and go ahead and go get the cheese, right? So, okay. So now let's kind of think about it from a perspective of a different perspective. So you have this rat that now has to go after this cheese, but the rat's not entirely motivated. Even though it's starving, it's not entirely motivated for cheese. Now, I want you to think about it in the same perspective in your life, all right? Let's say, you live in that house, okay? Deep down, it's not a house that it's not your dream home. It's not the house that you'd like to be in. It's not the house that basically fulfills your purpose. It's not the house that basically makes you go, wow, I'm excited to be here. It's not the house that makes you so excited to bring your friends in. It's not the house that you're like, oh wow, I really would love to be in this house. It's not a house in which you're going, oh my god, this is my favorite house. Or the car you're driving, you're like, oh, this is not my dream car. This is not the car in which I would like people to come, to take my friends and family in. This is not a car in which I think I think I'm better. I think I can do better. I think there's better that's out there for me, right? You have all of this stuff, but for some reason you're not entirely motivated to go out there and get more. It's okay. I mean, you show up, it's okay for you. I mean, it does the job. It does exactly what you basically wanted to do, but basically you're not entirely motivated to go out there and get more. It's the same mentality as to the cheese mentality is there is more that's out there, but you're not entirely motivated to go out there and get more. And the reason why is that? And why is that? It could be a number of reasons. I mean, you yourself know yourself more than anybody does, right? You know yourself more than anybody does, but you are not motivated to go out there and get more. You are not motivated to go out there and basically create a better life for yourself. You're not motivated to go out there and basically get things going that you need, deep down you need to get going. You're not entirely motivated to go out there and actually improve on yourself. Okay. Now, here's the reason behind that. The reason behind that is you don't have the cat smell. You don't have the cat's odor. You don't have that smell of something that you fear that's motivating you. You see, I was talking to about a few months ago. I was talking to a few friends of mine, and one of them was a therapist, and we were having this conversation, and the conversation goes, we're talking about basically childhood trauma and how most people who end up being successful end up having a lot of trauma. And she goes, well, because I was talking to her, I'm like, it's not, because we're talking about like a parent's dynamic, and I was talking about how I was raised, and how she's like, well, that's trauma. And I'm like, I don't necessarily feel like I had trauma. I feel like my father was the best father that I could have ever had, because he gave me the tools and the resources that I needed to become the person that I am today. So I'm like, I am actually living a much happier life. But she's like, well, the things you experienced, you had, your father passing away, your sister passing away, all of that stuff, doesn't it affect you? I was like, no, it just basically, it's more of a fuel and a fire. It's more of the ammo in the chamber for me to keep moving. But she's like, no, she's like, well, that, and I'm like, okay, I want you to so I was like, all right, let's bring this full circle. Let's think about it from a perspective. Let's say somebody witnesses, loss of a parent, and then they go and then they talk to a therapist. What it is that you just have somebody that's listened to, who's going to ask you, how do you feel about this? Okay, so how does that make you feel? And I'm like, it doesn't necessarily give you the action steps needed for you to take action. It doesn't give you the action steps needed for you to actually get yourself in a position in which you're actually taking action, right? It's just basically talking about feelings, and feelings are very important, but feelings are not something that's constant. Feelings are something that basically comes and goes, right? It's like water. One day it's down, one day it's up. It just goes along with the vessel, right? With the vessel that's in. So she was like, so we kept having this conversation, and I was like, okay, so my idea is I described, I was like, people who have had a very tough life, or tough upbringing, growing up. Here's the key thing: is they have what is called, I basically call, they have a toxic fire. Now let's look at it from a perspective of this: is fuel that you put in your car, the combustion fossil fuel that you put in your car, it's toxic. Would you agree? It's 100% toxic. Fuel is toxic. But if you took that fuel rather than putting it in your car and you sprayed it all over the car, right? All over the car, and with the right ignition, that car is going to catch on fire, and boom, that car is going to get destroyed, right? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Now, here's one thing I want you to think about it from a perspective of in your personal life. Go ahead and like the video, guys. Go ahead and like the videos. You need to think about it as to most people are getting consumed. Okay, think about it. They're getting consumed by the things that in which they've struggled with, rather than actually consuming and using it. So the fuel on the car starts a fire, destroys the car. But the fuel being used as a means for the combustion engine basically is what basically gives fire to get that car moving. What does that mean? That is the same analogy, is the same equivalent to the same analogy of basically the cat odor smell, right? In the sense as to, if you grew up poor, you would do whatever it takes to get yourself out of poverty than you would if you were born rich. You see, there's a saying that the greatest disadvantage you can ever give to your child is to give them the taste of financial freedom. Is to basically, if kids who are born in a very, very wealthy family will have a difficult life, not because they're bad people, but because they don't know what it feels like to strive for something. Okay? Because as human beings, we have had an innate nature. Because the thing is this, I'm going to say this. You ever noticed in, let's say, even in a personal relationship, right? You know what they say is the 6 months honeymoon phase. The reason why it's called the 6 months honeymoon phase is because within that period of time, everybody is trying to make that relationship work. Within that period of time, everybody's doing everything that they can to make sure that the other person likes them. They're like, okay, I want to make sure they like me. You know, your partner doesn't snore around you. They whenever they use the bathroom, they spray the entire place. You have all of these things that go on, right? Why is that? Because there's this innate nature to, like, you know what, I don't want to lose this. So there's an element of keep working for it. Now, after 6 months, 8 months, or 1 year, and there's an element of security and stability, what ends up happening is people become comfortable. And people become comfortable because the object of their desire is now in your possession. So they let themselves go. And that's why you start seeing most people getting into relationship struggles. And as the one complaint they always say is, the wife would tell the husband, he's not the man I married. He's not the man I used to know. The wife would tell the husband, she did this, she did this, she added this, she did this. Why? Because at the end of the day, is because both parties stopped trying. That's the same element as this. Is if you guys, we're gonna keep talking a little bit about a few studies, but the reason why you need a villain is because you need an element of constant striving. You need to consistently be struggling at something. Now, I don't know if you guys watched this movie. There's a movie called Megamind. Megamind is think about Megamind is he was a what is this word? He is a villain, right? So he was a villain that basically what was the word? He was a villain that basically he had the superhero that he basically had to beat. He had this superhero that he basically had to overcome, right? And this superhero was the what is the word? I can't remember his name. This guy, I think it's something man. It's Metro Man. It was Metro Man. So Mega Man basically defeated Metro Man, right? But after he defeated, I'm not gonna go into that. But I found the video, and I want you guys to go ahead and take a watch to this video, because I think this video, it's a little bit longer, but I think this video is gonna bring it off with it.
I know. I know.
I know, watching cartoon,
Always thirsty, never
but
satisfied.
this is the scene after
I
he basically
understand you, little
defeats,
well-dressed
the
bird.
superhero, right? So
What
this is
is
the
this?
villain that defeated the
Emptiness.
superhero. Okay,
It's a
but
vacuum, isn't it? It's what's your vacuum like?
Going off the rails on a crazy train, sir.
Hey! Not now, minion. I'm in a heated existential discussion with this dead-eyed plastic desk toy.
Is something wrong, sir?
Just think about it. We have it all. Yet we have nothing. It's just too easy now.
I'm sorry, you've lost me, sir.
I mean, we did it, right?
Well, you did it, sir. Yes, you've made that perfectly clear.
Then why do I feel so melancholy,
Melancholy.
unhappy?
Oh, what if tomorrow we could go kidnap Roxanne Ritchie? That always seems to lift your spirits.
Good idea, minion. But without him, what's the point?
Him, sir?
Nothing.
Okay, all right, well, just, that's, something to consider, and, well, I think I'll just power down for a while then.
now this is he said something, and I want you guys to take a listen to this. He said something. He said, without him, there's nothing. Now this is a villain, which eventually he ended up becoming the hero and all that stuff, right? Talking about how he defeated his nemesis, the one thing that he designed his whole life for. Okay. Now the first thing we spoke about here is the first point I wanted to make was this: is you needed something to strive for. Okay. But you have to understand is the reason why you're not striving for it, the reason why you're not moving forward is because you don't have something chasing you. You see, in my life, I'm going to comment on that on the video real quick, but in my life, most times that I took action happened from usually in situations in which people doubted me or doubted my abilities was the reason why I went ahead and took action. Because here's the reality: is this is you do not understand your true potential, because success is the best revenge. Okay, success is the best revenge. The reason why most people are in a position in which they're not moving forward is because they've gotten comfortable, they've gotten laxed. I'm going to talk a little bit about this as we proceed. And there's a story I want to tell you guys about one of the key moments that really was a driving force in my life. I want you guys to stay to the story, but to this video. Okay. In this part of the video, he was saying, without him, what's the point? What's the point? There's nothing. They have nothing. The reason why is this is when you don't have something that you're striving for, when you don't have a goal, when you don't have meaning in your life, when you don't have something that pushes you, when you don't have something that makes you go, yes, this is yes, you don't have something that you wake up in the morning and you want to achieve. You're basically, it's this equivalent of going to that grocery store without having a direction, without having a GPS. It's the equivalent of you going to that grocery store not knowing what your destination is. You see, the reality is in life is we were designed to strive, we were designed to struggle, but the only way you can struggle is you got to be moving from a point A to point B. And when you don't have point B that you're going after, when you don't have another point that's basically moving you and propelling you to think about, you know what, I want to keep doing this, I want to keep moving forward. When you don't have that point, what ends up happening is you end up struggling. You end up being in a point in which you end up basically in a depressed state. Now, that's first one. Number two, what happens when you do achieve that? What happens when you achieve the object of your desire? What happens? What happens when you get to a point in which that thing that you have strived for, that thing, that goal, that ambition, that drive, what happens when you achieve it? What happens when you get the object of your satisfaction? What happens? Then what? What's next? You're back to square one. What happens when you get to the grocery store? Now you're in the grocery store, you've gotten the food, now you go back home. What's next? You see, the thing is, the problem with most people is it's not that they don't set goals. The problem with most people is they set so low goals that they actually achieve it. You see, I was setting my goals and I've reached and hit every goal because the problem with it, the thing about a goal is not that you will not hit the goal. The problem is you hit the goal, but the timeline that you're going to hit the goal. Most people set such small goals that it's easier for them to achieve it. So, like, yes, so they can reinforce themselves as opposed to setting bigger goals that they keep striving and they make it their identity. Because the thing about a goal is not about hitting the goal, it is the person that you become as you get to the goal. You see, the thing is making $1 million is not a matter of like, oh my God, I want to make $1 million. Is the person that you become to earn and be deserving of that $1 million, right? Because you attract in life what you are. Okay, you do not attract because the thing is this. I had an acquaintance of mine, and she was complaining about her relationship. She'd been divorced 4 times. I'm not going to name her name, but she had been complaining about her relationship, been divorced 4 times, and every single guy that she was married to had the same trait, almost the same traits. And I looked at her and I asked her, I was like, hey, I'm not going to say her name, but I called her by her name. I was like, hey, all these guys seem to have the same thing in common. I'm like, these guys are not the problem. She goes, yeah, what do you mean? I'm like, the problem is you. You're the one picking them. The common denominator here is you, because if all of them are attracted to you, she's like, well, you're right. I'm actually a little bit, she said that word. And I'm like, I'm not gonna sit down. I was like, interesting. So the catch here is this is whatever situation that we want in our life, then you have to understand that the reason why it's in your life is because of who you are. If you're in a situation in which you have people that are not adding value to your life, or you have people, you're like, what about, there's always going to be the argument is like, well, my family. Well, the thing is, you didn't get to pick a family, but it's your choice to stay in that environment. You didn't get to pick a family that basically, you're living in a trailer park, but it's your choice to stay there. You didn't pick where you were born, but it's your choice to stay there. The thing is, you have to have goals in your life. You have to have ambition. You have to have things that are basically pushing you, because here's the truth. I'm going to tell you this. Listen to me. No one's coming to save you, because everybody has problems, everybody has a past, everybody has something, and everybody has something that they're trying to overcome. We all as individuals have our own villains. My villain and your villain are completely different. My goals and your goals are completely different. So to think that somebody's going to come save you, no one is going to come save you. You need to become your own hero. Believe in God, but obviously you need to become your own hero and take action. The key there is you need to take action, because here's the key: is once you hit your goals, what's next? There's something called post achievement depression. Post-achievement depression is something that most athletes struggle with. Usually, most athletes, if you notice, most people lose money after they make it. Most people get into a state of, a poor mental fortitude after they hit their goal. Because here's the reason why, and I want you guys to to I want you guys to read this article. So we're not. Well, I'm not gonna. It's not gonna be a long article, but this is a an article. This is, I believe, this was CNN. So this was basically, I think this was an interview being done with Phelps, and it was like he said, I was, his quote is, "I was always hungry, and I wanted more." Said Phelps. "I wanted to push myself really to see what my max was. Intensity has a price." Okay. Really, after every Olympics, he fell into a major state of depression, said Phelps. When asked to pinpoint when his trouble began, he noticed a pattern of emotion that just wasn't right at certain time during the year, which was basically around the beginning of October or November. This was basically, so he said this in '04. And I think if you keep reading, I'm not going to dive into the tweets and everything, but basically all the articles was, you can read what he said after 2012 and how he really, really had it really bad. And I want you guys to think about that from that perspective of this guy is probably a human dolphin. When I mean, if he comes to swimming, this guy can swim. But then you're like, why was he struggling? Because the thing is this, we all think that when we achieve our goals, we're going to achieve happiness. But that's not true. Your goals don't make you happy. If you set a goal for $10 million, you become worth $10 million. Your goals does not make you happy. Money doesn't buy happiness. That's the truth. But it takes you to a different level. But as long as you keep setting a different goal, now you go into a different level. And I want you to think about it from a perspective of this. Imagine you're a hiker and you climb a mountain. You're like, oh man, I want to climb this mountain at 6,000 feet. I'm going to go. You're climbing. You're like, yeah, you're going there. You're climbing. You're climbing. You're climbing. You're climbing. You're climbing. And you get to the top of the mountain. You've achieved your goal. You look around you, there's no one here because it's just you to climb the 6,000-foot mountain because nobody else has the motivation or fortitude to do what you just did. Now you get to the top of the mountain. Then what? There's no other mountain else to climb. You got to find a bigger mountain because if you don't find another taller mountain, a 7,000 foot, 10,000 foot, 15,000 foot, 20, 25,000 foot mountain to climb, you're going to just get into a state of post-achievement depression. You're going to get into a state in which you're like, because the thing is about human beings is most people are their best selves when they start out in a business. You can look at when they start in a business, when they start on a job, they are their best selves. They're excited. You can see the vibrant energy. And then they get to the top and you see the misery. And you're like, why? It's because they've achieved their goal. If your goal was to get to the top floor at your company and you get to the top floor, then what? What's next? What's next? That's the thing is you have to understand is not only do you need a villain, which is something to push you, you also need to understand that because the thing is this is imagine a video game. You get to a video game. Imagine the video game only had one villain, level 1, and you had one villain. What's next? The video game is over. It's done for. You don't have any other levels to play. What else? It's done. But imagine as you get to level 1, level 2, the villain gets badder. Level 3, you got a badder villain. Level 4, much badder villain. Level 5, level 6, level 7, level 8, level 9, level 10, level 11, level 12. But then as you understand, with each new level, you become tougher. Not only do you become tougher, but to become tougher, you have to become something tougher than you. The reason why you need to set villains and you need to set bigger ones is because the bigger the villain you overcome, the more you have that experience of saying, you know what, think about it as a video game. I don't play video games, but think about it as a video game, right? Let's say you're playing a video game, God of War, Minecraft, whatever it is. You had 3 skills, right? Let's say you had a jab and a cross, right? Or let's say, I don't know, let's say you had uppercut, right? That's it. That's all you got, right? Boom, you defeated this villain. Now you can hook. Okay? So now you have a hook. All right, now you have a look. Now you can use leg. Now you have speed. The more you defeat, the more stronger you become. But to actually become stronger, you have to overcome. Okay, you have to understand, for you to become, you have to overcome. For you to get stronger, you have to beat something that is stronger than you. Because the thing is, there is no problem that you've never faced that you haven't faced right now that you haven't beat. Okay, there's no problem that you face that you haven't beat. And here's the thing: is when you have to set new levels in the game and never get comfortable. So think about it in another scenario, in the game scenario. Imagine if you had to play a game and you played this video game, and in this video game, I basically, I said, hey, John, Mark, We're gonna play a game. I'm gonna give you this game to play. Okay. In this game, you have 20 levels to beat. You have 20 levels to beat this game. You're like, all right, man, I'm ready. I'm like, this game is not gonna be easy. You're like, I'm ready. This game is gonna be tough. You're like, I'm ready. This game is going to test you. You're like, I'm ready. This game is gonna change who you are. You're like, I'm ready. This game is gonna make it. You're like, I'm ready. And then as you're playing the game, you're getting ready to start, and I'm like, and you're struggling. You're like the first you're like you're starting to get disheartened. You first level, you can't beat the first level. A week goes by, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by, 4 weeks. You're starting to lose hope. You're like, why? I can't beat this. Why? And I'm like, John, here's a cheat code of the game. You're like, I wanted, yes, give me the cheat code. You get the cheat code. I'm like, this cheat code will help you beat all 20 levels. You're like, yes, I give you the 20, give it the cheat code. You beat level 1. Right? You beat level 2. But here's the problem. Before you beat level 1, you couldn't stop thinking about the game. You're in the shower. You're thinking about the game. You're like, oh my God, okay. So he went this way, so I got to go that way. Okay, he got the move there. I got to do this. Okay, so you're practicing, and then you tried in a game, and then the villain outsmarted you, and you're like, whoa. And then you tried, and then it's like, but then every day you kept trying to improve. Every day you kept trying to be better, but it still wasn't working. But now I give it a cheat code. Boom, level 1, you beat it. What? Level 2, you beat it. What? Level 3, it was just easy, 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 easy. Now, the next 19 levels, you beat it in 45 minutes. Now you're going to be like, the game becomes boring. Because now, after you beat the game, you're like, because level 1, where you didn't have the cheat codes, was the one that basically had you the most invested. Because after the game is over, I'm going to be like, hey, John, so how was the game for you? You're like, man, when I had to beat level 1 boss, man, dude, that was crazy, dude. I couldn't sleep, man. It was like, man, I had to drink it. I was like, man, I drank so much coffee. I stayed up. I was up from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. I was trying. But then, yeah, man, everything else, dude, who cares? It was easy. The game becomes boring and you don't learn anything because you don't improve and you don't push yourself to find new limits because you have the cheat code. And that's why most people try to play life on easy mode, because they want a cheat code. And I'm saying this is when you have the cheat code to any game, or you basically were born rich or whatever it is, you basically have the cheat code. Life is on easy mode. And when you play life on easy mode, here's where the problem lies. The problem lies now is you don't enjoy the game because you didn't have to go through the times in which you had sleepless nights to beat the game. You see, you got to stop looking at problems as something that is there to put you down, but you got to think about it as a test or a level of a game that you have to beat. Because when you beat the level of that game, there was another level that's there to be played. When you get to the next level, when you beat the next level, there's going to be another level. You beat that level, there's going to be another level. You beat that level, and it just keeps on growing. But with each new level, you become stronger. It's the same thing with benching. If I bench 150 now, for me to bench 200, I have to push myself and put 2 more plates of 25. For me to bench 300, I have to put 150 each side to bench 300. You see, for you to get to a new level, for you to grow new muscle, you have to put new obstacles to overcome, new weights, new villains that you need to face. And here's the thing: this is the enemy of success. I'm going to tell you guys this. I know I'm going on a rant. The enemy of success is comfort. You see, I have a quote that I'm going to say. This is satisfaction leads to inaction, and inaction leads to destruction. I'm going to say that again. Satisfaction leads to inaction, and inaction leads to self-destruction. When you get comfortable, when you've achieved your goals and dreams, now you have all this free time, you start giving into vices, you start giving into drinking, you start giving into smoking, you start giving into partying, you start giving into things that basically do not help you grow as a person. I have nothing against people who drink and smoke. If that's something you want to do, that's completely up to you. But that's the thing is, if you have more free time and nothing else to occupy your mind, guess what? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to get to a point in which your life is not going to be where you want it to be. You're going to get to a point in which your life is not where you want it to be. That's something you have to understand is you need a new villain to overcome. You need a new obstacle that you need to overcome. You need basically something that pushes you to become a better. You need something that pushes you to become a different. You need something that pushes you to become an improved and better individual. You need an obstacle that you need to overcome, right? So something you got to think about there. Now, another thing, the reason why I brought this up is I want you guys to think about it. Take a mind. What do you think? Just take a guess in your mind right now. If you want to comment, that's perfectly fine. But think about it in your mind right now. What is the average income? The average income of the of people in the United States, right? If you're not in the United States, that's fine. Still think about it. What is the average income of individuals in the United States? Just take a guess. What do you think is the average income of individuals in the United States? So the average income, the average median salary is basically, well, let me go ahead and the average median salary in the United States is $31,000. 31 grand. $31,000. You're like, what? The average income, let me find this, let me pull this up here, is in America is $31,000. Let me go ahead and basically share the screen here. Is $31,000. Now, according to the U.S. labor statistics, there. Now this is a little breakdown that I want to kind of go ahead and I want us to kind of dive into here, and this is just basically breaks everything down. You have it basically. You have age 20 to 24. You have basically, you have the age right there. As people begin to get older, they begin to make more, but usually you have people usually starting out, you're not making that much money. Now, some people, obviously 50,000, let's say you make it 50, 60, thousand. Does that mean that you can make more? Absolutely, you can. It's possible to make more. I mean, making more money should be on your goal. Making more money should be basically something that is in your forte, in your mind, to make more. Because if you look at the stats, basically between ages, let's go ahead and go back to that stats again. Between ages 16 to 19, let's say these are people who, let's say you working at a fast food joint, making 30 grand a year. And then let's say 2024, graduating college, 25, 34, now you're like in that establishing degree, wherever you are, you're making 56, 60 grand. And let's say you've been there for a while, they give you a few extra $1,000 raise, right? Basically just moving up, right? Now, what do you think is the interesting stats as far as how many people do you think are actually, when they get out of college, actually have some sort of goal or ambition? Some sort of goal or ambition. There's actually one third of people when they get out of college do not know what they want to do, according to a New York Post article. One in three, 1 in 3 Americans do not have any plans after college. Okay, and that's because the reality is this: is if you think about your experience as to why you got in college, or basically your life up until you became, I would say, let's say you get to college at 18 and you get out of college at 20. What's a decent age to think about it? 20, 22, 23, right? Up until then, everything that you've lived, the life that you've lived, has basically been a life that was, what is the, for lack of a better word, it's basically been a life that was pre-planned by someone else for you, right? They're like, hey, you get to middle school, you get to high school. After high school, you get to college. After college, then what? Right? Because most people get to college for the intention of partying, not understanding it. After that, you're on your own, right? Now what? Now what? Now, which is also another interesting stat is how many percent of people do you think are actually using the degree that they basically, in a career field that they basically worked in? I want you guys to think about this article. I want you to actually see as to what percentage do you think is actually using a degree, using the college degree that they actually graduated with, which I think this is a fascinating number to see. So according to this, basically 27.3% of graduates work in the field of their degree. 27.3%. So what does that mean? That means if 100 people graduate, only about 27 of them will actually use the degree. And 62.1% of college grads don't work in their major field at all. And 30% of people with a bachelor's degree say they would have chosen a different major. Right? And now, why am I saying this? Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up to understand one thing is this: is most people's life path was not chosen by them. The life path that you're on right now was probably not a result of you, but the result of the environment that you grew up in, the environment of the people that you had around you, the environment of people that were like, I think you should do this. I think this is what you need to do. I think you're going to be a fit for this. It's other people making the decision for you, not you making the decision for yourself. Other people basically made the decision for what you should do. Other people made the decision for what life would be a fit for you. You didn't make the decision for yourself. Now, here is another interesting stat which is one that's kind of fascinating to me is 83% of people don't have a goal, never set goals, never. And then about what? You have another 14% of them saying, you know what, I have a goal, and then 3% of people actually write down the goal. So if 83% of people don't have goals, they're just like going about life day by day, not really having a plan. And you have 14% of them that do have goals that, don't, because a goal that is not written down is not a goal. And if you don't have a plan about it, and if you don't have a plan, it's a wish. A goal without a plan is a wish. If you're like, hey, I'm going to make $1 million, okay, that's a wish. You're wishing for it. What's your plan? Well, I don't know what my plan is. Okay, well, how about you, like, what are the top industries that create the most millionaires in 10 years? Financial services. The financial services industry does one. Starting a business, I would say, be very, the odds of you hitting that is very, very, the odds of you failing when you go on a business as opposed to go into a route where you actually learn a set of skills and sell to high net worth individuals is completely different. So starting a business might be one that you might go into, but here you have one, you have the financial services industry. I'm not pitching the financial services industry to you, but that's one that's like, hey, that's a path, right? Which, if that's something you're looking for to get into financial services industry, go ahead and just go ahead and send me an email at emmanuel@risingresults.com, and we can go ahead and basically have a conversation there. You can send an email there at emmanuel@risingresults.com. That's the link right there. That's the email to basically reach out, and I'll try to put that email in the description after this. But think about it. You got to have a plan for your goal. You got to have a plan of achieving your goal, because if you don't have a plan, then you just basically have a wish. And the amount of people that have wishes without plans is it's actually what is astonishing, and is actually what baffles me. Because the reality is, in life, you need a purpose. In life, you need a purpose. Okay, you need something to push you. Remember, I told you guys, we're coming to the end of this, and I'm going to say this is, after this, we're going to watch this one video, and then I'm going to show you a story that basically made a very huge impact in my life. And I'm going to show you guys a story of basically one of the villains that basically I had to overcome, that in a way I would say helped me become the person that I am today. All right, but I want you guys to watch this video.
First of all, we never get taught that we need a purpose in life. So when you go to school, nobody tells you that you need a purpose. And then second, they don't tell you need a purpose. And second is, they don't teach you how to figure out your purpose in life. So most people grow up thinking that they don't need a purpose. But you do. But if you look at all the mundane things that you do in life, it's all driven by purpose. I mean, when was the last time you got in a car just to go for a drive? Probably never, right? Not if you live in London, right? When you get in a car to go somewhere, it's because of a purpose. You're going to meet somebody or have dinner or get to a location. In all the mundane, you go to a bathroom, there's a purpose. You never get to the bathroom and go, I'm not sure why I'm here, right? All the mundane things we do in life are driven by purpose. So why shouldn't life have a purpose? First of all, we never get taught that we need a purpose.
That's it. You need a purpose. And he said it. I mean, I do like to, most people, I do like to get in the car and drive. But you do need a purpose. So I want to tell you guys a story. So this would be now dating this maybe 8 years ago. Yeah, it's roughly about 8.5 years ago. I was teaching at this school, and I was fairly new to the school at the time. There's a little bit more of a backstory, but there was this one guy who was basically, he was the what is the word? He was like a deputy assistant principal of the school, whatever it is. But this was not a traditional school. This was a vocational school. But it was basically the deputy principal of the school, right? The school that I was teaching at. So I was teaching at the school. And before I started teaching the school, I was a student there, right? So long story short, I graduated. I was excited. I started teaching at the school. Now, I barely spoke to him. And even when I did, he would kind of have this apathetic, basically this nonchalant, interaction with me. I was like, okay, cool, that's interesting. But I was such a very unbothered person at the time that I was like, okay, cool, that's fine. We still, life goes on, and we still basically have our interaction. But what ended up happening was, when I started teaching, I had vocational students that would go take a test. Now, you were basically graded by each student to basically check your test was a reflection of your performance. So I had, almost about 80% of people I would send for this exact one test failed the test. So I started looking back at myself, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? And every new student that was going in, when the first student failed, I was like, wow. So I met with him. I'm like, what went wrong? I said, okay, you made this wrong. Okay. But it would only take the test with the same examiner, same instructor, right? You could take with different examiners, but they would always use this one examiner, because for some reason, the place I was teaching at, it was like, that's the only exam that's available. We can't give you anyone else. I was like, "Oh, okay." So they'll be like, they'll take a test. They'll be like, they'll fill the test. I'm like, okay, all right. Now I have to, all right, let's go back to the drawing board. We learn again. Second student, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Doing third student, fourth student, fifth student, sixth, seventh. And I was like, what's going on? Right? Because one, I remember I had one of the seventh student, though the eighth student was by far the one of the best students in the school. I just wanted to take a test. So I sent him under my name to see. He was like one hands down the best. Well, I mean, this kid was he was so good that the dude was shy of a genius. But then he failed the test. And I remember I got a call from we saw that this student failed the test, and we found out that this examiner has been doing this. Did you still want to take the test again? And I asked him, he's like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to go through that again, but they're like, well, we know that, he shouldn't have, based off of, we saw the records and everything. I was like, no. So then I was on to something. I was like, okay, something's going on. But then by the eighth student, I remember when he got in for the test, I got a call from the director of the, running the whole show at the time. He called me and he's like, the student's going to fail the test. And I'm like, why? Then he tells me, fills me in that this guy, this deputy principal dude, apparently was not a big fan of me and had signed something with the examiner to basically have all the students fail. And then once all the students fail, then he would basically get me to a point in which my license would be in question, which is very fascinating. I didn't expect that to be such a thing because I didn't wish ill will on anybody. So I didn't think anyone would actually have ill will for me. But basically, that's basically human nature. It gets better. So I remember at the time, the girl I was with, she was like, hey, she told her what was going on. But I was like, I'm still just going to keep showing up because that's all I can do. So she ended up applying for me to go to a different place to go work. And I remember the place I was working at was paying me, I was making about $300 a month. So I could barely afford, what do you call it? I basically had 3 pairs of shirt and 1 jeans, right? And that's basically all I had because we had to basically have that was all I had. So that's all I would wear for the most part. So I remember she booked me for this interview, and I went for the interview, and it was basically you had people all dressed in suits, all drenched up, and I showed up in a very poorly, I had a shirt. It was a blue and white shirt. It was a it was like a white shirt with like light blue on it, but then the blue had started to peel off, right? But that's all I could afford. I couldn't afford any other clothes. I didn't have any money to buy any other clothes at the time. So I remember we went in, I went in, I did the test, I went after all, they were like, hey, you had the highest score on the test. That we would like to give it the job, but we don't like the way you're dressed. And I was like, sir, being honest with you, I can't afford anything else. I don't have the money. This is all I could. And then he's like, all right, fine. You can start in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then I started a job, so it was an extra $500 a month, which was great for me because now at that point in time, I could afford to take this girl out on dates, even though it was like the limit was like $18. We could only order from the appetizer menu, which is very interesting. So it gets a little interesting as to I start working there, and then a few months afterwards we had, because it was a similar kind of training, and then a few months after we had all of the people who, because I was overqualified for the position they gave me, it was like an entry level position. Imagine you had a PhD, but you're basically starting out without with on the floor when no one else basically with everybody else. So I started, and then they're like, hey, we want to give you this promotion, so I took it. And then it increased the volume. So now I think when I was with the school, I sent about 93, almost to 100 students, and I only had 3 of them that failed. So which means 97 students all passed. And I was like, so then and then they all had the best records. So then it was like, okay, so it's still the same teaching method, but just performed in a different way. But then also the school paid me better money, all that good stuff. But the point I'm getting to is, I remember the reason why I kept trying so hard with every student I had at that time was like, I remembered the fact of that one guy that had a vendetta against me, even though I meant him no ill will. And that pushed me. That was my villain. To this day, if I met that man, I would shake his hand and thank him because he pushed me to always improve. Because when I went to the next school, trust me, I did not slack. I did not even let one. I was on it. I remember they called me they had a nickname because I would not take any days off. I'd be there by 7 a.m. in the morning, and I'll be there to like 5 to around 7. And I'll do this Monday through Saturday. Sunday was the only day I was off. This Monday through Saturday. And they're like, dude, they're like, it doesn't matter what was going on, rain, sunshine, I was working. And they asked me why. And I was like, because I remember what happened. And like, I don't want that to ever be a defining moment where somebody is like hey, this and this. I want to be in a position in which I know deep down that I did my best. So I always pushed. I was like, how can I improve? I observed other teachers. They would be like, dude, you're a teacher. You shouldn't be observing my class. I was like, can I just learn? I was sitting with the students taking notes. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to be the best I could possibly be because I wanted to beat that villain. And I encountered a few other people like that who basically had young personal vendettas. But to me, I am grateful for that because to everybody that makes themselves a villain basically gives me an opportunity to grow. That's the same way you got to look at it in your life. It has to come from a position in which you have to see everything the challenge that you face in your life as an opportunity to grow and become a better individual. Because nothing happens to you; it all happens for you. It's all a game. Life is a giant game, and to beat each level, there's gonna be problems. And if you don't have any problems in your life, you're gonna be satisfied. You're gonna be comfortable. You're gonna let yourself go. And the reason why you let yourself go is because you don't have anything to strive for. Zero. And when you don't have anything to strive for, anything that's pushing you, then what? You've achieved all your goals. That's the biggest problem. You've gone into the post achievement depression because you achieved all your goals. You stopped showing up because guess what? Why? The truth about life and the truth about happiness is you need to have new things that are pushing you, to have new goals outside of yourself that's pushing you. That's the only way in which you can stay motivated. And that's the only way you can keep showing up and doing what it is that you're supposed to do. Now, that is pretty much for the most part what I have for you guys today. And for anyone who's watching this, just to kind of summarize, bring it to you this is find you a cheese. Remember the rat in the maze. Set your goals to chase. But remember, have something that's chasing you. Put your back against the wall that you have no choice but to move forward. Because the same thing is a rat, okay? A rat will move just a little bit to get the cheese. But when it knows that there's a cat chasing it, it would do its best to get away from the cat. Right? If you're comfortable where you're at right now, you don't want to get to a better place, it's because there is a cheese, but there's no cat chasing you. Find a villain, and then you also have to understand that once you run away from that villain and you beat your villain, then you have to understand that you need a new one. Because if you don't get another one, there's no reason why you should go for the next cheese. Right? That's pretty much what I have for you for today. Make sure to tune in live tomorrow. And obviously, as you guys know, we're going to keep dropping fire content. And thanks again for everyone who's joining me today. And obviously, as always, like I always like to say,